One of the most common questions that I receive here on this channel is, why do I have to learn my triads? Everybody seems to have been told at some point in their playing career, either by a teacher or by a friend, that learning the triads is one of the best things you can do to get better at the guitar. But when asked why they have to learn the triads, nobody seems to have a good answer. So hopefully today I can go into that a little bit to give you some reasons why triads might be useful for you and why they might not be. Now, there are two fairly unsatisfactory answers that are often given when asked, why do I have to learn triads? The first goes along the lines of because they're fundamental to all of music, and you just have to learn them even if you don't know their benefit yet. The second common answer that is given is that triads just form the basis of Western music, so we shouldn't question it. But how are triads the basis of music? Did somebody just randomly pick a triad over an interval or a scale to form the foundational theory of music? No. Let's go into that a little bit. If you take a string, like this metal one for the guitar, pull it nice and tight, and then pluck it, you will get a sound. And this is because it is vibrating the air at a certain frequency, and that air vibration reaches our ears, which we then translate into sound. But that sound is more complicated than it may first seem upon listening. To our untrained ears, we hear a single pitch, but in reality the pitch that we are identifying is made up of many different frequencies. So here I have recorded the 7th string of my guitar tuned to an open C. If we open up this spectrogram while we listen, we can see the frequencies that actually make up what we are listening to. So right away we see that the loudest and lowest frequency, the one on the left, is the one that we're hearing most clearly. So if we isolate it, we can identify that is kind of the lowest fundamental frequency of our guitar note. But above that, we see many more frequency spikes. Each of those is actually a note in and of itself. So we can isolate those and listen to them. But for now, let's just jot down the frequency numbers of these notes by hovering over them and writing those down on the side. So here's our lowest frequency, and here are the subsequent spikes. So the first spike after the fundamental is 2 times higher than the original. The second spike is 3 times higher than the original, the third is 4 times, the next one is 5 times, and so on and so forth. Beyond this, we can see that the spikes become quieter and harder to discern just with our naked ear. Our next step is to take these frequency numbers that we've written down and to translate them into actual pitch names. So the fundamental, as we already know, is a C, and we can see that the second spike is also a C. The next one following that is a G, the next one is a C again, and then the final one that we wrote down is an E. So, in the first 4 harmonics above our fundamental frequency, we have 3 different notes: C, G, and E. And what do those spell? A C major triad. Now, none of this is actually that new. This stuff has been known for thousands of years, but it is why we can say that the triad forms the backbone of Western music. Within a single note, we have the ingredients for a triad. And then beyond that, if we continue going up the harmonics, we get the ingredients for a pentatonic scale, and a major scale, and extended harmony. Now that's all fine and well, but what does this have to do with the guitar, and how will it make me better at playing? Well, hopefully by understanding the theory a little bit, you can see that triads are kind of essential to everything, and by understanding them, you'll start to deepen your understanding of music in general, and of your instrument. So we're kind of learning this way, rather than this way, as we learn triads. But that answer to me is not satisfactory. That's kind of along the lines of, well, just trust in the process, learn them, and you'll figure it out eventually. I want to give you some specific examples that triads can help you. Firstly, triads can lead you to a better understanding of chord construction, and will give you the ability to figure out your own chords without needing to memorize hundreds of chord shapes. You can toss away books like these, and just start to figure out sounds on your own with this understanding of the fundamental building blocks of chords. Next, triads can help you learn chord progressions and harmonic interaction. It gives us a basis for understanding tension and release so that we can write interesting music that moves us in different ways. Triads can lead to extended harmony. Triads are just basic chords, but when you stack them on top of each other, they become more complex chords, and they create more specific and, in my opinion, interesting sounds. For an example, here is a C triad, and here is an A flat triad. If we play them individually, they are both very basic major triads, don't really have much of a different character other than being in different keys. However, if we play them together, stacked on top of each other, we get this cool sound. And we could think of this sound as a C7, sharp 9, sharp 5, omit the 7, using conventional chord names, but I think it's just a little bit easier to think of it as an A flat and a C. Next, a solid understanding of triads will directly affect how good you are at arpeggios, because what is an arpeggio other than a chord or triad broken up into its individual notes? Next, if you are looking to learn to improvise, triads can be a big help here. There is a huge trap that so many guitarists fall into when they're learning how to improvise, including myself back when I was going to music school, and that is to focus on chord-scale relationships rather than focusing on triads. If you've heard guitarists who are learning this way, using these chord-scale relationships, you'll know that they all kind of sound the same, and they're all just running the same scales over the chord progressions. They're not really creating music, they're not really creating anything interesting, and they're not learning the vocabulary of the genre they're learning in. The remedy to this is to use triads in order to navigate the fretboard more smoothly, think about voice leading, and to get some more musical sounds. And finally, triads can unlock your fretboard knowledge and your ability to move around the guitar neck with ease. When I first started guitar, I had worked on scales and arpeggios and classical songs and etudes and different solos and chord shapes and all sorts of things, but it wasn't until I actually started working on triads that I unlocked the fretboard for myself. And I think the way that this happened is that triads allow you to chunk different areas of the fretboard into different note collections that you can then view as entire entities rather than trying to memorize individual pitches. This is why I always say those little note memorization games don't actually work if you're looking to build a functional understanding of your guitar fretboard. So, that's a lot of reasons to maybe work on triads. Maybe one or two of them will speak to you and motivate you to pick up this subject or to put some extra time into it or revisit it if it's something you've looked at before but maybe never got anywhere with. But we still haven't answered, what do I do and actually to start working on these triads? Well, that's going to be the subject of a bunch of videos I'm going to be making over the next few weeks, the first of which is already made, and you can find it by clicking on the little I up here or finding it in the description down below. That video will go over all of the basic triad shapes, major, minor, diminished, augmented, and suspended, in their basic closed position form, something we all need to learn before getting into some of the more interesting stuff. It also contains a PDF with all of the shapes for those triads on the 8-string guitar for free. You can download that and use that in your practice. And I will be going over a few exercises for those triads, specifically the ones that helped me learn the fretboard when I was in music school. So armed with the information of this video, I hope to see you over there next to get into some of the nitty-gritty about working on triads for the 8-string guitar. We'll see you there.